In this video, I'm going to break down the process of working with Converse for an out-of-home campaign here in Toronto. I'll go through the pre-production, the production, and the post-production process. If you're new to the channel, my name is Andrew. I'm a creative director here in Toronto, Canada. My goal with this channel is to bring more transparency to the world of creative direction. Now, this project was a huge turning point for my career, not because of the size of the project and the name brand, but it taught me some invaluable lessons as an artist. It allowed me to break through those emotions of imposter syndrome while learning to embrace it at the same time. And that's what it's all about. If you can grow professionally and personally from a job, that's a win-win. Now, this project was at a point in my career when I was still doing mostly Photoshop art. After working at an agency for about 4 years, I branched off and started my own company. I always had a passion for photography and shooting landscape and cityscape stuff here in Toronto, but I thought a lot of that had been done before. That's when I started using Photoshop to manipulate these images and kind of grew a following from that. To this day, everything I know about Photoshop, I learned from YouTube. That's the best thing about YouTube is everything is searchable and there's a solution and video for everything. Working with such an iconic brand was extremely intimidating at first, but leaning on those 10,000 hours that I put in, teaching myself Photoshop on YouTube really gave me the confidence to move forward. And I know I didn't have these types of videos when I was looking for them at that point in my career. So hopefully this gives you some take-home knowledge to apply to your own path. If you want more of these videos or got some sort of value from the videos or just want to support the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps get this video into the feeds of those who would benefit from it. All right, let's get into the first phase, pre-production. So this project was a collaboration between Converse and Foot Locker. Foot Locker being the retail supplier for the shoes that we're marketing. Now, Converse reached out to me on Instagram, and I think they already had some sort of buy-in on the manipulation style of art that I was putting out there. Foot Locker had a similar style of assets out there in the world with that ripped paper effect. The really cool part about working with Converse is that they give you a lot of creative freedom. Instead of driving the creative themselves, they really lean on creators and creatives to bring their look and feel to the forefront. So first off, I'm going to bring you through the brief that was given to me from the Foot Locker and Converse team. What the team really wanted to do was combine this winterized theme with their new line of the Mountain Club shoes. Again, the client had buy-in on the Photoshop and manipulation side of things. So it was my job to play up on the winterized elements of these shoes. They're waterproof and great for winter while leveraging Photoshop to tell a bit of that story. So these are some of the assets that were already in market for Foot Locker, and they wanted to incorporate the Converse brand into those assets. This was at a time when a lot of brands were using that ripped paper effect to add a little bit of texture to the creative. These are the two products that we're using for the campaign, the Converse Mountain Club boots. As you can see here, there's a really good tread on the bottom here, that kind of gum texture for the female line, and then, classic black for the men's line. What I thought was really cool with this product was that the logo was kind of blended in with the rest of the shoe rather than having that classic, contrasting Converse logo. So the brief was pretty short and sweet. Gave me kind of a rundown of the visuals, the branding that was already in market that we wanted to play up on. And then of course we have deliverables. So although a lot of the creative was out of home, billboards and wild postings, there was also a heavy paid media buy here, meaning the assets had to live in a number of different ratios, color spaces, and formats. So after the client walked me through the brief, I took it back, kind of digested it a bit, and came up with a number of themes that fit into this ripped paper theme. When it comes to selling a package that includes, those Photoshop manipulation elements, it's really important to bring the client through a visual journey in your pitchback deck. One thing I love to do is brand my pitchback decks in the look and feel that was in the brief from the client. For me, with a Photoshop background, this was a simple touch that I could do probably in 3 or 4 minutes in Photoshop, and it really elevates your presentations. So the first theme that I presented was perspective. So given we were going for this surreal Photoshop kind of vibe, I really wanted to leverage this otherworldly feel for this. Because we're in Toronto, there's so many different landscape and cityscape shots that we could recreate for this. I thought having the context of Toronto in winter would really help sell the features of the shoe. The next theme I presented was around the idea of soul purpose. Soul being the shoe, and purpose incorporating the all-stars talent. For an idea with a stylist, we could have them dressed in some really cool clothing, but also incorporate those surreal elements behind them. This idea was kind of playing off the cool factor of who the talent was rather than product placement, but there are many ways to incorporate the product within the talent's lifestyle. The next theme was doubling down on this ripped paper idea, bringing the key messaging of the shoe that it's weatherproof for all weather. I thought it would be cool to explore that with the ripped paper effect and have the talent kind of walking through different frames of seasons. My last approach was to go full on surreal. Now looking back on this, I think it was a little bit too far on the surreal side because I think there might be some brand safety elements that we're kind of ignoring here. This slide was more so to push the client towards the other themes, although I wanted them to know that I was capable of creating these extremely surreal images. Another idea I pitched outside of the scope was a way to break down the layers of what was created to showcase how we made the final image through a bunch of layers in Photoshop. This is a tactic that I used on my Instagram to show the process of making the image through the layers in Photoshop. And after I presented, the client came back with a bit of feedback. They wanted a couple of the themes mixed together. So what we ultimately went with were the perspective theme, where certain elements would be different sizes than they normally would in reality, and the ripped paper theme incorporated with winterized elements. Part of the reason why I present a few different themes and ideas is because it gives the client an idea of what we can do, and we can refine the theme from there as to what they see fit for the brand. At the end of the day, they know the brand better than I do. I'm just here to facilitate creative ideas to bring their key messaging to life creatively. After we confirmed the creative approach, I put together a quick workback schedule to understand what the next steps were to delivery of the project. It's important you outline the different stages of the project so that there's ownership over certain roles. Now that the client had signed off on the idea, it was time for production. This was a pretty run and gun shoot. I had a PA, a BTS filmer, a stylist, and the stylist assistant, along with the 2 talent on set. Leaning on my confidence with Photoshop, I just really needed to capture multiple angles with the shot list that we agreed upon. Before the production phase, my brother and I did a location scout. In Toronto, there are a ton of rooftop parking lots that give you this nice wide open space, but you're surrounded by buildings. And we really wanted to play up that concrete jungle feel here while using some thoughtful manipulations in Photoshop. Now, there are a number of reasons why you do a location scout. It's not only to build confidence yourself with the location so that you know which angles you need, but it's also to send a client so they can actually understand where the shoot is happening and kind of what it'll look like. After we found the location, we did a couple test shots to understand the lighting, the elements of the buildings around, and also just the overall look and feel of the space. It also being a rooftop parking garage in Toronto gave us access to park our cars there, keep wardrobe there, and it gave us a lot more flexibility in terms of what's needed on a shoot. Also, because a lot of the elements that we were using in post-production would be stock or manipulated, the main thing that we were concerned about was the talent interacting with that space. When you're working on a campaign that primarily you use Photoshop for, you really need to set yourself up for success and overshoot on the projects just so you have, every single angle possible. Converse at this time was really pushing the boundaries in terms of breaking those rules in photography, and they really loved that fisheye kind of look. Now, I knew going into this shoot, we only had 6 to 8 shots on the shot list, but I really made sure I had a ton of angles to work with for Photoshop, as well as different body movements and facial expressions from the talent. A lot of my job when playing different roles on a campaign like this is just making the talent feel at ease. I think that's one of the most overlooked things in photo and video because you can truly tell when someone's looking uncomfortable. What I try to do is nurture a lighthearted environment. We're joking around, we're getting to know each other, we're having fun, rather than this kind of rigid production. I know that's easier said than done, but most of the time as a creative, you're going to have to learn how to be with people and understand people to make them feel comfortable. Now that we've captured everything in the production phase, we can go into the post-production editing phase. The first step of post-production is figuring out your selects. As a photographer or artist, you want to pick a variety of shots that you think look the best, combined with what you think the client will like the best. I personally go through all the raw images I shot and mark the ones that I like, and that's usually around 100, 150 images, and I try to narrow those down to about 20 to 30 images. Once I have those, I can put them in a deck and present the selects to the client, because this is very helpful for them visually to see all of the selects in one document and make decisions from there. I've broken up this deck into 3 categories, which are lifestyle stills, lifestyle motion, which was more like action kind of shots, and then knee down shots, which were product heavy. So after the selects were confirmed by the client, I then had to figure out how to fit these into the placements. What I do when working on out-of-home campaigns is request the blueprint outlines for each placement from the out-of-home company that is doing the printing. Converse and Foot Locker had decided to do what's called a takeover, where in Osgood Station, every ad placement in the subway would be bought out by Converse and Foot Locker. So in this case, it was Pattison that owned the placements in the subway station, and they provide these PDF outlines so you can build your art within them. The first one here was a wall mural, pretty easy placement in terms of designing what goes in those boundaries. Next, it was a similar wall, but there was a cutout for a vent, which is this pink area here. And it's important to account for those types of things, as you want to have some negative space in the image in those areas so it doesn't take away from the creative. Next, we had another wall mural, pretty simple rectangle here. The hardest placement of all was definitely this stairwell mural, where there was a railing, which is the pink line there, and a number of different vents that we had to account for. And because this placement in nature wasn't straight, it was definitely pretty difficult to design the creative for this one. Aside from the staircase, the actual stair risers would have art on them as well. And I would say this is the second hardest placement to build out. Lastly, we just had subway station posters, which I was the most comfortable playing with. Now, I'm not going to go too far in depth into the Photoshop aspect of the project, just because that belongs in a different video, but I'll go through kind of the layering and how I approached the project in Photoshop. Now, first I brought in those PDF images that the out-of-home company provided for us and made sure all the parameters like color space and sizing were correct. And then it was the process of figuring out what selects I could put where within this very unique staircase form. Just to fast forward through that process a bit, I'm just going to bring you through the layers of Photoshop here. So I decided to start with the top left and move down the staircase. The first image I decided to put in the top left was Yaya with his boot out like this. I thought it was cool to come out of the frame a bit and have the paper rip in the background, giving it a bit more depth. Second, we put the actual hero shot of the shoe that he was wearing. Since we didn't really get to see the other side of the boot in the first image, we just kind of saw the tread. And then I added a group shot in the middle here with Yaya and Iman, and this kind of filled up that negative space that was definitely needed in this creative. We have the hero shot of them here in the middle, and then the product shot in the bottom right here. This was important to me because, you know, we had Yaya in the first image and then a hero product shot, and then we had both of them here, and we didn't really see the female boot yet, so it was important to get the profile of that product shot right here. So I decided to put one of Iman's individual shots here, since we used an individual shot up the staircase, and then again added another hero shot of her boot. Lastly, to end the staircase, I just added a textured background with this concrete and some snow texture to kind of give it that winterized feel. This was important because we had to put the key messaging of weather ready and obviously the Foot Locker and Converse logos at the end. Now, I know this creative looks super weird in this format here, but it actually did translate very well to the staircase in real life. So here are the final assets in their PDF form, and this is what was delivered to the out-of-home company. It was such an honor to work on a project of this scale. It was definitely not an easy feat, but I'm super happy with the outcome. If you got to the end of this video, I really, truly appreciate it. I'm going to try to make these videos a bit more succinct, but explaining the process is no small feat. If you have any questions about the project or comments, let me know below in the comments section. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd truly appreciate it. I'm going to now leave you with some of the shots I took of the art actually in real life.
Look, check how we moving with the vision in mind. I'm low side with my on division with slime. Been making plays, I'm finna dish 'em a dime. I feel my pocket vibrating, that's your on the line. Check how I'm living with the vision in mind. I'm low side with my on division with slime. You tryna hit me, gotta get in the line. Better go and get you some business instead of dipping in mine. Look, I hit the avenue, baby, I'm on a mission. I Peel a scabbitude if you play me some pimping. I used to talk a lot lately, I listen. I'm quick to cut them if they can't play their position. We slizzard inside the Chevy, no levy, holding a wave. Blowing this herbal medley hit like a bundle of sage. Popping my little ism, I did them dirty, I'm petty. Moving, you hear me shaking, just